Hey there, hope you're doing good. As we continue refactoring Futurecam, we had 40 items on this list, now we are down to 30. So it'll take maybe a couple of dozen videos more. But that's okay, we'll work on it step by step without getting overwhelmed. Let's take a stab at this task. Remove all func configure. So a mini tutorial for those of you who don't know Swift. If you want to do something that requires some kind of locking and unlocking, the traditional way would be to do it this way. Lock, do the work, unlock. But the problem is, if you return here or an exception is thrown, you're not unlocking. So this is bad code in any language. Different languages have different solutions. Java has try finally. Swift has something that's far better called defer. So what you do is, instead of this way, you do this. So this block of, this is how you do it. So first you lock, then you execute the defer statement, which registers this code to be run at the end of this scope. And then you do the work. And then when you reach the end of the function, this code gets invoked regardless of whether you had a return in between. This could be 100 lines of code. So this is how you do it in Swift. I built a wrapper function for this to make it easier to use. But I am wondering whether the wrapper function even makes sense. So let's see if we can do something with it here. There's one in AV capture session. Oh, this is just a call site. Yeah, so the first two tabs, AV capture device and AV capture session, are the ones that define it. There's one more called along with. Where is that? This is to configure a device. This is to configure a session. Oh, and this one, the third one, is to configure both. So you can see there's like unnecessary complexity already. Yeah, let's just take a stab at all of them in this order here. This one can be done this way. So you're configuring both here. And when you configure both, how does it work? What is the order? First it configures the session, then it configures the device. So when we refactor, we don't want to change the meaning of the code by changing the order. Who knows what impact it might have. In general, when you're configuring the camera in iOS, it's very tricky. The same thing in a different order doesn't work. So session first. How do you configure a session? Begin configuration, defer, commit configuration. Okay. I wonder if you can use a nested scope in Swift. This way. Here, let's say you lock, and then you call defer unlock. You just use print statements as a substitute. Locking, unlocking, print, configuring. Now you will see locking, then you'll see configuring printed, then you'll see unlocking printed, as you expect. Now if you look at this code, after everything is done, you want to check something, right? So let's say you want to check something here at the end, checking that it's configured right. Now this doesn't work as expected. You want this printed at the end. I am just wondering, and maybe this is a dumb idea, I don't even know if Swift lets you do it, and I've never seen code this way. Can you create a scope like this? Ooh. Becomes a closure. I think you can do this in Swift, in C and other languages. Anonymous nested scope, I think that's what. Oh, you can just say do. Strange. Yeah. So now this scope finishes executing completely, only then you come here. It's like a nested function call, right? If function f calls g, g finishes executing its entirety. Same here. Locking, configuring, unlocking. Should we do this? We'll make this change, then we'll evaluate it. Maybe it's a bad idea, maybe this entire commit should be reverted. That's okay. Try lock for configuration. Let me read more about this. Swift do nested scope. The Swift book is excellent. Must be in control flow. Oh, this is a do while. Swift calls it repeat while. They change a lot of things here. Okay, this is a traditional loop. Anyway, So suppose you return here for some reason, someone refactors the code to change it this way. Then unlock gets executed only if lock gets executed. Unless you mess it up by putting a return statement here, this code will always work. You can put whatever you want here. Okay. After the differs are executed. Okay, this is one. I'll just copy paste that code from above. Yeah, we can review it later. Let's just focus on coding it. Here we didn't need to use do because there is nothing that happens after the configure block. update exposure bias is the only thing that's happening after the do block. Good, it reduces the nesting level, which makes it easier to understand. What? You're configuring it twice. Oh my god, what was I doing? How does it handle offer configuration? If it is already locked and you call this again, does it just count how many times you have called it and wait till you have the same number of unlock calls? Yeah, I have no idea how it works. Again, it doesn't describe. Yeah, let's fix this nested code. It may cause a problem, I don't know. Nice, it shows in red that the nesting isn't correct. There are too many closing braces. Okay, what are you doing? You're doing try, lock, defer, unlock, and you're doing all the code and just going ahead and hoping it'll work. This is on the AV capture device, is it? Yes. So we don't need this device dot. Session.configure. This local variable isn't needed either. Actually, now it is because it's going to be used twice. Oh, this happens later. It's okay, it's just going to play the shutter sound. I don't think it matters much whether the shutter sound plays before or after the block. This is the device code. Okay. So in either case, you are calling self.take bracket if needed. In this case, you are first locking. Okay, fine, let's move on. Here we have a nested function. Oh, it's not a nested function. It's a function within an extension. I thought it's a function within a function. And the entire thing is the function. Makes sense. Oh, there's one more. This is on AV capture device? Yes. Okay, first we need to make it a guard to reduce nesting. That's it. Sometimes if you don't call this begin and commit before you do it, it crashes. Sometimes it works but captures at the wrong resolution, exposure, white balance, or it becomes slow. So this APIs are tricky and poorly documented and they keep crashing and so on. Or they give unhelpful error codes like -14,742 and it's anyone's guess what that means. It's like the old C days. Unlike in a more modern language like Java where you'd get an exception, you'd say you'd get invalid frame rate exception or something, right? So you know what the problem is. And even if the exception name isn't descriptive, the message will be, hopefully. But here you get the C error codes, right? And iOS was kind of built by repurposing Mac OS code, which is from the 90s, built in C. So Swift is like the layer on top, but the core still gives you these unhelpful error messages. Okay. So, where are we? My rant aside. You're configuring the device only. How are you doing it? And just this block got replaced by a do block. So the rest will not change. So in the earlier code, this entire thing would get executed, then this. The same thing would happen here. This entire thing gets executed, then this. Here you're configuring both. This is, so let's just open all the diffs. I used to do this earlier. Now for whatever reason I'm not doing it anymore. Open all the diffs, see which ones can be closed, and then close them once I have validated that the diff is correct. I don't want to lose this comment because this is hard-earned knowledge. losing this comment is okay. It's just something I added yesterday, and it's a good practice anyway. If it crashes, you need to figure out the root cause. This is one of the things that goes wrong in a startup, even mine, where I gave myself and the team plenty of time to do it right, saying we are not going to ship something defective just to meet a timeline. The problem is that you don't have enough time. Sometimes, even though you don't intend to, you put in hacks. Now years later, if you ask me, was it right that you, for example, ignored errors rather than understanding the root cause? No. And tomorrow that happens, irrespective of schedule, I will understand the root cause. But it just goes to show how pressure, too much of it, causes people to kind of forget what they know. So yeah, looking at this, we use an early return. This is on the device, lock for configuration, defer mode. Fine. This diff is done. Frame producer. So first I'm going to look through all the diffs to ensure I haven't made any mistakes or introduced any bugs. Then I look at all the diffs again to see whether it is clearer or less clear. Yeah, session and the same code. The shutter sound is being played earlier. That's okay. This is a boolean. It's not going to change whether you read the value before or after committing the configuration, so it's fine. Here we are configuring the device only in the if block. Again, this should use early return. Multiple things to improve here. One is you don't need this parenthesis, it's not C. So if the diff is small, you take bracket if needed and return. You're guarding that it is greater, else here it is small, you are taking bracket and returning. Now the if case, the diff is big. You are configuring the device and then you are calling set focus mode locked. Once the focus is locked, you're doing this. Okay, cool. In the future, we may clean up some of that code in an unrelated refactoring, but we'll get to it when we get to it. There is another way to do this. Since it's a 10-second delay, it's okay, but the other way we can do it is in the defer block. Instead of using do. Okay, in this case it's fine, we'll just leave it as it is. In a different case we can look at it. Since we are waiting 10 seconds for the autofocus, it should be fine. This is straightforward. Device.configure. No need of a blank line here. Oops. Again, straightforward. Configuring the session, then the camera. Here is where we have do. Is this the only do? Okay, there is one more do here. So this is the code that should run after everything is done. I'll make this change. I think it will be cleaner. If not, we can go back to the do. Differs are executed in the reverse order. So this is a thing that will happen last. This should work. I think this is cleaner because do introduces yet another level of nesting and control flow you have to think about. Differ gives you what you want. So the way differ works is if you do this begin config differ and config, and then what was the other one? Lock for config. This could be on a different object, right? That could, the first one could be on the session, this could be on the device, doesn't matter. Unlock for config. Actual work. If this is the code you write, basically the compiler rewrites it to this while taking care of early returns. So in the normal flow, this is how it would work. The reason it is executed on the in the reverse order is if you locked this second, right? This is the session. Let's write it differently. Session.begin config, session.end config. This is device.lock for config. This is device.unlock for config. So this is how the compiler rewrites the code, and the differs execute in the reverse order as they should, because first you have locked the session, then you have locked the device. So first you have to unlock the device, like any kind of nesting, right? If function f calls g first returns, then only f returns. The same logic here. Oh, there's one more differ here, or multiple differs here. Okay, fine, never mind. So I think we have changed the order of the code now, which may or may not be a problem. Let's see. In this, no, I think it's still the same. In this code, these two did change value calls happen at the very end of the function because the differ blocks are executed first. And these two differ blocks are still executed before anything else. So that is taken care of. Then you actually lock the session and device. Then you set the full res format and add the input. Then you unlock the device. Then you unlock the session. Then you call update exposure BIOS. Then you are calling this. So the reverse order, after this code is done, this will execute. Then this will execute on the session. Yes, so we have done it correctly. We haven't changed the order of execution. Yeah, we have removed this nested configuration. Like, what was I thinking? Oops, I forgot parenthesis at multiple places in unlock for configuration. Yeah, let's do the same thing. I hate these do blocks, it's very confusing. Nobody writes code this way. It's very weird and everyone has to stop and think, wait, what is this guy doing here? That is not good code. That's not the way in which you should be innovative. So here, okay, you're guarding something, then you're locking the session first, then the camera, then you're executing some code, then you're unlocking the camera, then the session, then you're checking that the stabilization is off, so the meaning is still the same. Let's just do one more pass to the diffs, looking for missing parenthesis in the defer block. I found it twice, so I'm assuming I made the same mistake elsewhere. I wonder if coding without a compiler is making me develop bad habits of checking what the compiler would check anyway. Normally I would just do command B to build and all these problems would immediately come up. I think I checked this, I don't remember. Okay, now let's do one last pass through the diffs. This time what we will check is it cleaner or not? If it is not cleaner, if it is messier, we should go back to the older code. Thing is, for someone reading it, it's a black box. They have to read this code, then they have to read the nested code. So when you call session.configure along with, so there are three configures, right? One on AV capture device. This is the one. One on session. And one that configures both. Where did that code go? It's somewhere. I think it's in camera. So people need to understand all three of these configure functions. Oh, let's look at missing documentation changes. Wait, before we get back to evaluating whether it's cleaner or worse. This is a place for the comment. So you don't want to lose these valuable comments when refactoring. If it's there in one place, it's enough. No need to copy paste it. Okay. So now let's look at, is it better or worse, this entire refactoring. We don't need two blank lines here. Here, yeah, you have to understand these three functions before you understand the code. Now it's just more explicit. You are locking the session, and then the camera, then you're doing something, and you're verifying. I think it's fine here. Let's look at the next file. I think it's fine. Like if you just look at it at a glance, it looks messier than before, but the complexity is still there. It's just split between 4 places that you need to understand. This code, session.configure, session.configure along with, and device.configure. Better to have it in one place. I feel this thing, try to abstract out things that are not necessary to abstract out. This is cleaner. And also this refactoring eliminates these closures. So if you see here, this is a closure. You don't want to use closures unnecessarily. Straight line code is easier to understand. We have early return, then this is straightforward. Yeah, I feel this code is cleaner. And I'll see you in the next video.